Hello, awkward soup. Girls are dirty too. Okay, there's this idea that like guys are really filthy and dirty, but you know what? So are girls. And our friends that are guys in the apartment next door, their apartment's cleaner than ours most of the time. And it actually kind of makes me feel bad. But my roommate set up a sign this week to remind us that dishes should be washed and not left. Absolutely disgusting. This week I threw away some milk from our fridge that expired on May 11th. It's currently May 25th. It's been like 2 weeks since it expired, and milk does some gross things. I'm just glad that nobody opened it, because that smell probably would have never left the apartment. So gross. What happens to milk when you let it expire? It's nasty.
I don't even want to touch it.
So as Mary and Machen know, I'm currently TAing the class that we met in. So we met in Innovation and Inquiry through Design Thinking, and now I TA that class. And this week, my students presented their first project, and it was on domestic violence, and they blew me away. I loved it so much. So here's the website they made. Come on, you gotta see this, you gotta see this. Oh, wait. There we go. So pretty and purple. Anyway, so scroll down a little bit. But they've got several tabs, and it's just so pretty. But as you might have seen the name, it's Damn DV, and I just wanted to read you their mission statement because they just did so well. I never thought how fulfilling it would be to be a TA and just see what your students do and be so proud of them, especially in this class where I'm more of a student guide than a TA. I don't just grade, I actually am there with them in the class. But I wanted to read you their mission statement. So it says, domestic violence is much like a raging river. When left uncontrolled, it can become a destructive and seemingly unstoppable force. But history shows us that even the largest river can be stopped. A raging river can be dammed, and so can domestic violence. Dams are not only built to stop a river, but also to create power. And as we work to dam domestic violence, we also work to empower those caught in its destruction. DamnDV works to educate and to provide resources and inspiration to individuals to use the power that is created as domestic violence is literally dammed from degrading the many lives it affects. Help us to dam the raging river of domestic violence. I'm proud. I'm proud. So, to present that website, they had to give a presentation, and I told them they needed to think outside the box, because no one likes a PowerPoint slide, and to think of something interesting, and they came up with something I never thought of. They wanted to do a launch party for their website. So they threw candy into the crowd, and they explained what their website was about, and then they had our professor cut a purple ribbon in front of their website, and I just like my group. They're great. Also, here's a little clip of my group working on their idea right in the ideating phase of design thinking. Just like a 6-second clip just to see what my group looks like.
Validation, education, memes, and social media. Sponsor at political movement. Lawn signs, that's cool. Public announcements.
This week, the wind was ridiculous. Like, the wind is already ridiculous in Idaho, but it was just outrageous. Like, so Brother Morris, Mary Machen, who was our teacher, some of his roof got torn off. Like, good big sheets of his shingles just ripped off. It was crazy. And like, walking home, there'd be just this tunnel of wind, and you actually had to put effort into take each step to walk against the wind, and if you didn't put in the effort, then you couldn't walk. And it was just ridiculous, and signs were falling, and tree limbs were being torn down by my parents' house, and it was just violent and outrageous. I couldn't get any super great video clips of it because wind is so, I don't know, just because wind is so changing and raging and you can't always get it, but it was just, wow. Like, there was times where it snaked around me, and it felt so cool, because, the breeze, I do like breezy, but it was just, it snaked everywhere and just blasted, and wow, just so much wind. It made the day miserable and fantastic all at the same time. So I hung this decoration up in my apartment this week. So the story is, I bought a shirt the other day that I wanted to cut off and make into a short sleeve shirt, and I cut off one sleeve, but then I ran out of time and didn't cut off the other sleeve. And then one day I decided I wanted to wear the shirt, but the sleeves were different lengths, and then I kept it that way. I call these social experiments. I do them sometimes where I do something where I learn just how people work, I guess, or just try something new. So I wore this in public. I had a short sleeve and a long sleeve all the way down to my wrist walking on campus. And here's kind of what I was thinking. So I'm about to run a bit of a social experiment right now. I'm about to leave the class and I'm wearing this shirt. And I want to see how many people notice my sleeves in just general walking around on campus, and then how many people of those I know or the students I TA are going to actually ask me about my sleeves. But my hypothesis is that most people who mention them are going to make kind of sassy comments like, "Is your right arm colder than your left?" So this is going to be fun. Oddly, I thought more people would make comments, but only 3 people really said something to me. People who didn't know. I had one friend who knew I was doing the experiment, but 3 who had no idea, and it was just interesting. My one friend, of course, she did make a sassy comment. She says, "Hey, one of your sleeves is missing." And I was like, "What? Is it?" But I also had one of my students notice, and it took her a while, at least 10 minutes, and then she started looking at me really weird, and when I made eye contact with her, she did this. She just kind of went like this, and gave me a weird face. And then we talked about it later. And then I had a friend run into me who's like, "Oh, your shirt's different." But other than that, people mostly just looked at me, but no one really approached or said anything or smiled. And if I looked at them, they would kind of look away. It's like, "Oh, I wasn't watching." And I just find that so interesting. That people just don't voice what they said. About a year ago, I did another kind of social experiment like this, where I had acquired a bruise on my arm that came from here to here, just gigantic, all the way down my arm. And I thought, well, this is interesting. People who are in domestic violence have big bruises on the outside too. Do people ever notice them? And so I spent a week with that bruise, making sure I wore shirts where you could see it, and just tried to see if people would notice. And the only people who noticed were those really who I told, or it was very obviously displayed. But I had no strangers really come up and be like, "What's wrong with your arm?" And I just thought it was so interesting that some people just don't notice, and some people just don't say anything. And that's my interesting little tidbit for social experiments. But I guess people just don't have the bravery, don't want to bother you in your life to know, why are your sleeves different lengths? Why do you have a huge bruise? Why are you wearing that like that? Even today, I've got lipstick on the top, but not on the bottom. Did you notice that? The best way to make your day is with a bowl of awkward soup.